Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Control Report Podcast, episode 120. Benjamin Yoder is 120. No, it's 100. I was thinking Mario 128 is what I was trying to think of. The little that tech demo where all the Marios are running around on that disc and stuff. It was a weird thing. It's weird to think about when. And I guess this doesn't feel like it happens nearly as much anymore, but back then, you would have tech demos and stuff that people would see, and they'd be like, it's a video game, even though it's just a tech demo or something like that. I could think of the Mario 128 thing, that Final Fantasy Silicon Graphics demo thing, the Final Fantasy 7 PS3 remake stuff. It's interesting to see. I feel like you don't really have that these days. You get these tech demos, and I don't feel like anybody ever goes, oh, that's a video game. Probably because there's just a lot more information out there these days, and it's a lot easier to look that stuff up and debunk it and things like that. And everyone's on social media, so everyone's kind of aware of what's going on. Anyways, that was a weird sidetrack for a number that wasn't even accurate. Hi, I'm Benjamin Yoder. I'm here today to talk to you about video games. I have not been playing a ton of video games, but again, as it's been kind of going slow. Not really any new developments. Work has been super busy, so I've been kind of overwhelmed by that and trying to just get home and just chill for the most part. But I did play a couple things. Mainly I played Sonic Riders. So I picked this up on GameCube probably about 3 or 4 years ago, although I realized I didn't get the manual with it, but I think I paid $15-20 for it or something like that. I think that's about right price-wise. I don't think I got an incredible deal or anything like that. But yeah, it's a weird game because you kind of expect from mascot racing games that they're all going to kind of play like Mario Kart, and that's really not the case with Sonic Riders. It's this weird own unique thing with a lot of very specific mechanics and a very specific control style as well. You know, before Mario Kart Wii came out, where everything was drifting focused, this game very much feels like one where the whole any kind of major turns in that game needs to be using the trigger and kind of sliding through turns. And I don't know if you really get a boost per se for sliding, or at least not in the sense that you get in Mario Kart. You might come out of a slide faster than if you're just going straight. But it's not really something that I feel like when you're sliding, you're slowing down in the case of Sonic Riders. So it's kind of like a trade-off kind of thing. But yeah, so it just controls very differently, and it has a lot of, I guess, interesting mechanics to it. Kind of the base of the game is you have a air system. So Sonic Riders, unlike Sonic R, where everybody was in a vehicle or just running around or something, although you can get rollerblades in this game. Each of these vehicles, and it's mostly boards, but each of these vehicles have an air amount, and as you do certain things, you drain air, and you kind of just steadily drain air overall. So doing things like tricks, riding rails, there's a little air boost, or pit stops where you can get air back, and you basically stop in there, and then you launch out either once you decide to launch out or once you recover your air. And then you can get rings, and that will level. I think what happens, it's I'm honestly not 100% sure, even though I read through the manual. I think what happens is you get enough rings and you level up your board during the race, so you can get up to level 3, and depending on what board level you have, the more boost you can hold, or more air you can hold rather. So you collect rings, and I think when you level up, you refill on your air, and then also there's and these are just item capsule things that you get rings from, and then also you can get air out of it, and then there's some other power-ups, but the other power-ups seem very minimal. It's mostly rings or air. If you get something else, it's rare. I would say probably once per Grand Prix I get an item that's not just rings, air, or probably the most common speed boost. There are some other things there, but I don't know. It's kind of inconsequential if you get anything else, because so much of the game is focused around maintaining your air that I feel like it's very hard to really manage other things like what weapons you have, and you don't really hold on to the weapons. They just kind of get thrown out immediately. You can get these melee weapons, and I'm not sure what triggers this. I think it might be an item, But and when you get these melee weapons, if you boost by somebody, you'll hit them and it'll like knock rings out of them. So I think it like lowers their overall boost, but it doesn't really slow them down per se. It's kind of a bizarre thing. It reminds me of like Kirby Air Ride, where the power ups aren't really there to slow other players down. It's more of to penalize them. And in the case of Kirby Air Ride, if you have health on, if somebody gets hit enough, they die and then they're out of the race. But in the case of Sonic Riders, I think you're just like hitting them to down level them so they don't have as much speed. And then there's this whole turbulence system where if you go, I don't want to say too fast, but if you go fast, you kind of leave this big half pipe behind you of air, and people can ride that half pipe, and it basically is like a free a free space to just kind of like ride without running out of air. You also don't really need a turn, like if somebody does like one of those turbulence things around an entire turn, like you can just ride it the entire turn and just follow the exact path the other person took. So it's kind of interesting. But that turbulence also gets kind of in the way, because when there's no like way to like turn on going into turbulence, like you're not pressing a button to get into somebody's turbulence, you're just kind of like ending up in it. Though if you hit it at certain angles, you won't enter the turbulence, you'll get bounced off of it. It's strangely complex, and it's not quite like anything else I've ever played before. And I think that's really cool. It's very hard to manage. And I guess you use the A button a lot, because my thumb, I played a few hours and my thumb is hurting in the same way like a fighting game would hurt my thumb on like a D-pad. So, and Kirby Air Ride, is also very A button focused. I don't remember if I got like any kind of like, not sore, but like almost like raw thumbs from playing Kirby Air Ride. So, but yeah, it's a really interesting game. There's a story mode to it. I would say, it's been a long time since I've played a Sonic game. I feel like from my memory of Sonic cutscenes, which, I'm not going to sit there and say Sonic cutscenes are great. They're kind of, low budget and kind of awkward and stilted typically from my memory. Sonic Riders seems even more so. But it's kind of, it's nice that they took the time to make a story. I think there's like these group of people called like the Babylon Pirates or something like that, and they're kind of like the rival faction to Sonic. I think they're a fun cast, and I enjoyed their part of the story. Sonic's part of the story was kind of whatever. It was more or less just Sonic being like, oh no, Eggman, Chaos Emerald, something's happening, I'm gonna go find out. And then you get to the end, like, oh no, Eggman got all the Chaos Emeralds. It's like, okay, yeah. Although it's not really even about the Chaos Emeralds. It's about getting to the city of Babylon or something like that. And he was like, I want the technology to rule the world or something like that. And then Sonic's story ends pretty early. And then you kind of do these Babylon stories, which kind of overlaps with Sonic stories and then goes beyond that story. And I think their little plot lines are silly and fun. It's nothing deep. It's pretty much just these guys trying to find treasure. They are like, oh, Eggman lied to us about the treasure being here, but, I can get there's technology here, so we can still, like, sell it. And then, go on and you I don't know if you ever really race against Eggman per se, now that I think about it. Like, if you do race against Eggman, it's kind of inconsequential. Who you're racing against is typically inconsequential in general. There's some missions, so when you're playing the story mode, it gives you a set of missions, and none of the missions actually matter. So it'll say, like, defeat Amy Rose, but it'll say in parentheses, get first place. So even if you get ahead of Amy during a race or something like that, it doesn't matter. Like, even though you beat Amy on the score ranking, it still wants first place. So seeing things like defeat Amy Rose, outrun Eggman, it's still just get first place is what it is. With the exception of the very last mission. That last mission has a slight change to it. It's an interesting course, actually. It was a little confusing, like, jumping into it. It's maybe a little too easy. I say the story mode overall is fairly easy, though some of the later tracks really require you to be very attentive to how you're racing and taking shortcuts, because shortcuts are huge in that game. And if you miss one, you can go from like first to fifth place. So you gotta be on top of that, and you have to hit as many of those shortcuts as possible, in a way that, like, I feel like Mario Kart shortcuts are good, but they're not like you're not going to go from fifth to first place using a shortcut in Mario Kart, where Sonic Riders, you can jump up real high. So yeah, I'll probably do a quick play on Sonic Riders at some point. So I beat the story mode, and then so basically right now there's some additional tracks and additional characters I want to unlock, which just is going to require doing some grinding of the main game. We'll see how hard it is. The game doesn't really, as far as I can tell, have like a difficulty level. So when you go to the Grand Prix, it's actually pretty intense from the start. So you just gotta kind of do well. But because there's not a lot of items or anything like that, it's mostly skill based. And not so much like luck based like a Mario Kart can be. So we also finished up Tales of the Tempest this week on stream. And I'm pretty much where I'm at with the beginning of that game, where, hey, it's pretty average. I ended up playing casters on the back half because the AI is no good at healing, and that last battle in particular really needed a healer. I was surprised. It's a JRPG that has a final boss without a second form. I was like, oh, that's rare. So we beat the final boss, and that was the end. And it was like, oh, okay. And probably is about as you expect. You defeat the darkness, and then Caius wants to go see the world, the main character, and everybody else goes back to their business. Really, not a lot happened. It's, as an early DS game, it would have been cool to play a JRPG, when you're looking at stuff like, Lunar Star Dragon Song, I think it was called, which people pretty actively disliked. Like, I think JRPGs on the DS early on were mixed at best, so it's not super surprising. It wasn't really until, years later that you got anything decent. Like, even Final Fantasy III, as great as a remake as it is for the Final Fantasy III for the NES, it's an 8-bit RPG at its core, and it's, like, not great. So I feel like for early RPGs, it's about on par with what you have on DS. The fan translation seems perfectly fine. Like, I didn't see any issues. If you told me that was a real localization, I would be like, oh, yeah, 100%. So that was pretty cool. So that was kind of it for the games I played. And I played some Rhythm Thief. So we might have a Rhythm Thief quick play coming up here. I recorded all the footage because it's a rhythm game. I pre-recorded everything before I do any kind of commentary over it. So I'm going to try to do that this weekend, and then maybe we'll have a quick play up for Rhythm Thief this week. And that's kind of it. In terms of news, the big thing is the Nintendo Direct, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull up this Nintendo Direct news article from GameSpot.com. So if I miss anything, blame them. But I just kind of want to go over some of these things. I'm gonna ignore some of this stuff that I really didn't have much thought on. Super Nintendo games on Switch is really cool. In terms of so in terms of being a subscription service for retro Nintendo games, I think it's nice that the lineup is really good compared to like the NES lineup at start. The NES lineup was pretty atrocious at start, but I mean, it's not that it was atrocious. It's just those games haven't aged super well, and they're interesting curiosities. Like I find Ice Climber and stuff like that interesting, but I wouldn't say they're great games these days. Where I feel like Super Nintendo games, you can pretty consistently say these games are at least still good. Or very enjoyable. Like it's worthy of playing today, I guess. I say that as somebody who's just came off of playing Tales of the Tempest, which is like the most whatever thing, and I still enjoyed it. So I'm not like trying to I'm not trying to say those NES games are bad. So let's get past this. But I think it's really cool that they're still doing the online stuff. I wish there were more multiplayer games that made use of that, but I'm sure over time they will. Stunt Race FX, I really want to check that out. The big thing though is that I would rather, and I know it's silly, but I would rather own Stunt Race FX. So like getting a subscription service to play it and then it be gone at some point. It's difficult when I don't own a game for me to feel like I really want to invest a lot of time into it because I already own so much stuff and I keep pretty decent track of my backloggery. So my backlog. So it's like nice to check a game off. But if it's like a subscription game, it's just kind of there. But why would I play video games just for fun? So I think it's cool. I'm looking forward to see if they put any other multiplayer stuff with online play on there. I would be super interested in playing like Secret of Mana online or something like that if I could find the people, because I really do want to play Secret of Mana, but I don't know. I've had some problems with that game. There's the Xenoblade Chronicles remake, and I've seen. So I'm glad it seems like generally people are very happy about this, and I think that's really good. If you don't know, basically the Xenoblade Chronicles remake redoes some of the graphics for the game, the character models being the most notable. They're redoing some of the environments as well, and I think they're re-recording all the voice acting and stuff. And I think some people were saying that it looked like they might be doing the Bionis' shoulder, which was like a cut part of the game. I didn't really see any evidence of that per se. It might have just been people speculating, but it sounded like people were saying that based off the trailer. I don't know if that's actually the case, but yeah, I did see some arguments over over the art style of the game, and I would probably say I'm somebody who falls towards liking the original Xenoblade Chronicles art better. Basically, if you haven't seen it, Xenoblade Chronicles remake goes for the more anime style that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 goes for. I would say it is pretty dang close to how Xenoblade Chronicles 2 looks. But I did see some people arguing that it was different. And if you look at the comparison shots, it is different. It definitely leans more towards the more realistic side of things, but it's definitely closer to how Xenoblade Chronicles 2 looks versus like Xenoblade Chronicles X. I did see some weird argument somebody was making about how that's how Xenoblade Chronicles has always looked, and the only reason why it looks better is because of the graphical capabilities of the Switch. And I'm like, you are crazy. Like, I think I got what he was trying to say about like aesthetically, because it has a more realistic look compared to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, that it still fit the original game. I am a little hesitant to say that in terms of like, at least, it's staying in line with the original game. But, I think you could just look at Xenoblade Chronicles X and how that game looked, and you can probably say chances are, if they had the hardware power of the Wii U or the Switch when they're making the original Xenoblade, they probably wouldn't have gone with the look they went with the Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Because I would expect visually what Xenoblade Chronicles 2 it looks like would, at least in the case of Xenoblade Chronicles X, work. But yeah, I don't know. I prefer that weird like anime, like leaning towards the other side of the spectrum where it's more realistic but with anime elements, rather than anime elements with more realistic, or anime focused yet with more realistic elements to it. I might pick it up still though. I mean, I'm a big Monolith Soft fan. Especially if they add content, but when I probably won't prioritize playing it in the near future. I feel like there's a lot of other Monolith soft stuff that I want to check out, like eventually, like Summerbringer I still need to play, Xenosaga 1 and 2 on DS, and sometimes I think about going to Xenosaga Episode 3, but if I played Xenosaga Episode 3, I feel like I'd play through Xenosaga 1 and 2 again, and outside of the DS one is not localized, so I wouldn't like be getting the summary of the story from there. But yeah, just like, I don't know. Maybe I'll play Xenosaga DS and then look at 1 and 2 through a video and just determine it from that. But like a lot of the Xenosaga, like what I want to know about Xenosaga 3 is a mechanical thing. Like story is important too in terms of what I want to kind of revisit it for, but I also want to see the progression from Xenosaga 1 to Xenosaga 2 to Xenosaga 3. So playing the DS one doesn't really feel like it would fit that for me, like fit what I would need. So, but anyways, I'll probably pick this up, but I don't know when I'll pick it up or when I'll play it. I don't really have any concern about it being a rare game. Xenoblade Chronicles is big enough right now that Nintendo's going to print plenty of copies. So I have no real concerns. Super Kirby Clash. It's like a co-op beat 'em up, or like, I don't know, maybe beat 'em up. It's like a co-op hack and slash beat 'em up kind of thing where you get like these different classes and you fight monsters, and it's free to start. I didn't look into what the monetization model is, like if you just buy the game full after that part, or if you buy it piecemeal, like, oh, you're buying powers and stuff like that. I might check that out. I like that style of game, and I do like seeing the Kirby games continue to do their weird things. There's some interesting stuff on the 3DS that they tried to do with Kirby and like different classes. There's that Battle Royale game, which I wrote an article about that, but I didn't think that game was great. And then there's also like Kirby Clash, I think I played, and that's a really cool game. I might go back to Kirby Clash and try that. I think it's called Clash. It's the one where you're like, it's like an overhead perspective, and it's all about like kind of comboing, sucking up enemies and blowing out giant stars at enemies. There's no like power-ups in that game, so it's all very focused on the traditional style of Kirby, but from a different perspective kind of thing. So maybe I'll try out Super Kirby Clash. It's free to start at least, so I don't know. I'll download it and then I'll think about it. It's Final Fantasy 15 is definitely my grind game right now. Well, will be my grind game again once I get back to that style of game. So I'm not super desperate to jump into that. There's the Trials of Mana trailer that was in there. I really have nothing else to say about Trials of Mana other than it looks cool. The new 3D remake one. They already re-released like the original one translated for the Switch that was like based off the Super Nintendo game. Indie games. Little Town Hero. I need to know more about Little Town Hero. This is the Game Freak game that's like all about like defending your town. It's kind of like has RPG elements and stuff. I'll be curious to see how it does. Game Freak seems to be doing some interesting side stuff, but none of it has been particularly successful. There's like that, was it like Jumbo, the badass elephant, and then what was that other game called? Pocket Jockey on 3DS. And then there's like some game where you're a girl with like an arm that can like throw junk. I forget what that game's called, but nothing really seems to be really taken off. So I'll be curious, since this one seems to be getting more like prime time from Nintendo, although Pocket Card Jockey did get some prime time, but that's a very specific thing of like a horse racing game with solitaire. As good as it is, I don't know how well you can market that to people typically. This looks like more like a traditional RPG that's on the Switch. Pretty popular platform. You have a lot of people playing Xenoblade Chronicles on there, so maybe there's some overlap there. And so yeah, Banjo-Kazooie and Smash, really nothing to say about that. And then also there is Terry Bogard. So Terry Bogard being added to Smash is, I'm perfectly fine with this. I see more people complaining about Terry Bogard, people saying other people are complaining about Terry Bogard than people actually complaining about Terry Bogard being in Smash. I actually have not seen a single person complain about Terry Bogard being in Smash Brothers. Only people complaining about people who say that they shouldn't be. But that may just be my group on Twitter that might be big Terry Bogard fans. Interesting note, as somebody who's not like a part of the, like, I don't really know any SNK games really, and don't really have an investment in any of them, and eventually would like to. I've played Athena a little bit, and that's about it. Psycho Soldier, sorry, not Athena. But it features Athena. Whenever I think of Terry Bogard, I just think King of Fighters, which I know is like I think it's like a I guess you could call it a crossover game between all of SNK's fighting games, I think. So Fatal Fury is one of them. So it's weird to see Terry Bogard from Fatal Fury, and I'm like, oh yeah, Fatal Fury is the thing. My brain is just like King of Fighters, I think he's in... I know he's in Garu Mark of the Wolves, and I think that's related to King of Fighters as well. I'm not very knowledgeable about SNK. I'm pretty sure he's in King of Fighters somewhere. Anyways. But yeah, nothing really new to say about that other than, yeah, cool. Why not? I'm all for more Smash characters. I don't know when I'll actually get around to buying the fighter pack or whatever. And then they announced they're going to do more DLC characters, so I'll be curious to see. But I've been pretty much waiting until I get back to playing some more Smash Brothers. I want to do some more online stuff in particular, but I really haven't committed to doing that yet. So let's see. Sans costume. I'm not a huge Undertale fan. I think Undertale mechanically as a game, so they added Sans costume to Super Smash Brothers. Sans being, I don't know, you'd call him a very popular character in Undertale. I don't really think he's an antagonist per se. He's kind of like rides the line. But I'm not a huge fan of Undertale's writing or anything like that, or like its style or characters very much. So it doesn't really do a ton for me. But I do really like Undertale mechanically as a video game. That's kind of like the weird split point for me, because I actually think Undertale's a really cool game. Like when I think about how that game progresses and how it evolves, like almost on a battle by battle cases, you're almost always doing something new in a battle, even though it's like maybe only slightly different. There's always some kind of development. And this is with a pacifist run, I should specify. I have not done the other two runs in the game, the neutral and the I don't remember what the last run is called. So with the pacifist run, like the game is constantly evolving, and I think that's really cool. But yeah, the story characters and none of that ever really lined up with me. So like I wouldn't say I'm an Undertale fan, but it's hard to find people who also talk about the mechanics of the game for me. Side rant, I guess. Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE Encore. Basically, this is just that Sharp FE game that came out on the Wii U, so it's getting ported over, has some original or some new content being added. What's most notable is it seems like it's likely that they've de-censored the game. I guess I know people like get all upset about the censored term. I don't really care. They covered up some stuff for the US release to make it more US friendly, I guess. Whether you want to call it censorship or not is another thing. I kept seeing people arguing about what censorship was over the weekend, and I'm just like, maybe this is just a bad term to use because two different groups of people have two different understandings of what censorship means, and usually that just means to get away from the word. But the changes, they basically sounds like they're undoing the changes between the US version and the Japanese version, and well, it seems likely. So people are taking screenshots from the website and stuff, from the US website, I believe, and comparing them with the covered up characters and stuff who like had a bunch of like clothing added to reduce cleavage and recluse other elements of like I guess sensual elements. The big question I think overall is there's a dungeon that was completely redesigned in the US version from being like, I think like a guy who obsessed over girls in swimsuits outfits to something else. I can't remember. It's been a while. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of interesting because if it does come out that way and it's like been changed back, and text, I'd be curious to like, I don't know what the dialogue looked like for that section of the game, so I maybe wonder if they re-record dialogue for those parts of the game. But now you kind of have like two versions of the game with like a dungeon that's like different per version. So I picked it up on Wii U a while ago. I might look at a list of what's been changed. If it's just costume changes, I probably won't like kill myself over playing the Switch version. I might just stick with the Wii U version. Just because it's a minor thing, and if I know I had a friend that gave me a hard time for buying the Wii U version because like, you're supporting Nintendo, but I bought it used, so I don't think Nintendo didn't get any of my money. so yeah, that's fun. I don't know when I'll ever play that game. It's not high up on my list, but it's on my list of eventually for sure. Deadly Premonition 1's getting ported to the Switch. Then there's also Deadly Premonition 2. I don't know why. I've never had a lot of interest in Deadly Premonition. Like, I don't know why. It seems like totally up my alley. Maybe if I sat down and played it, I would be like super into it. But yeah, I don't know. I'll have to wait to see how, like, if I decide to pick up a copy of Deadly Premonition, I'll have to see how it runs on Switch and if there's like a physical version. Because if it doesn't run well, I'd probably just rather go back and play, I think it was the Xbox 360 was the original release, depending on how expensive it is. I haven't looked at the pricing of Deadly Premonition in a while. I feel like it used to be really cheap, but sometimes those games that used to be really cheap were also like low print, not super in demand, and then word spread, and then it got like explosive in popularity. So I don't know. I don't think I'll play it anytime soon. The only sweary games I've played is Spy Fiction and Extermination. So I should probably play more sweary games. Probably more sweary games that are more in his style rather than Spy Fiction and Extermination that are just kind of like his early forays, I guess, into game development. I don't remember if he made anything before Extermination, but Doom 64 coming to Switch is cool. Let's see what else. I'm just going through this list now. I think wasn't a ton else here. Pokemon Sword and Shield. I think Pokemon Sword and Shield still looks okay. I think it's like visually it's great, and like they're adding I don't know what the character customization looked like in the past games, but I think it's really cool, like how much they're adding. So now I think before you go and do tops and bottoms, I think is what they said in the video, and now you can do like your whole outfit basically. So I think that's neat. I like character customization in games a lot. So yeah, and then I'm just gonna skip over the rest of these because there are a lot of like stuff that doesn't super matter. But there were some other things that came out with the Japanese Nintendo Direct. Let me pull that up here. There was a trailer for Protect Me Knight, the third game in that series, I believe. So that looks neat. Basically, you're like in the previous Protect Me Knight games, you like defended the princess who was like in like a castle. And in this case, she's like on a cart, and so you like cart her around the level, so you can kind of move the princess around. And I think I'm curious how essential that would be, because you could pick up, in the second game at least, you could pick up the princess and move her around. And this was important because if you got away, it's basically like a wave defense game. You're defending this princess in this castle, and if the princess dies or the castle gets destroyed, you lose. So everybody, you build barricades and stuff, and typically the princess would just be sitting on the castle and you would leave her there. But if you get further away from the princess, you lose power. So it would sometimes be smart to bring the princess with you to places so you keep your power level if you have to go out further somewhere. But then, that makes the princess vulnerable because she's not behind the barricades and stuff. So in this case, she's like on a cart. And so I'll be curious to see if they've accounted for like wanting you to make the princess more mobile, because I feel like in the last game, especially if you're playing single player, it was very punishing if you brought the princess out, and typically it wasn't the smartest thing to do. That game also needed some pretty significant variety. I remember the maps getting very, very repetitive and very, very difficult in the second game. I really enjoyed it though. Like I had a lot of fun with it, and I beat it and everything. But yeah, it got very grindy. And I think another part of that is like I hope they add online multiplayer. I don't know if they've said they would do that yet. Because as a man who is not around anybody who plays video games, that would be my preferred way, is be play online with other people rather than have to get around, find somebody with the Switch locally and play that way. But we'll see. I think it's a pretty small development team, so I think they wanted to do online in the 3DS game, but they weren't able to do it at the time. So we'll see if they are able to do it now, but I don't know. And then also Moon is getting localized, which if you don't know, it was like a PlayStation 1. I've heard it described as the anti-RPG before. It to me, it looks like an adventure game more than anything. It seems like a lot of like walking around talking to people and trading items and stuff like that. I haven't looked at this game in a long time, so I could be misremembering this. But it was a desirable game to get fan translated for a long time. I think somebody was working on it at some point but didn't finish it up. But for some reason, that's getting ported to Switch, so cool. And then also, it's getting English localization, so also cool. It comes out in October in Japan, but they said like shortly after the English localization will be out. So that's neat. I might have to look into it again and see if it's something I'm really interested in checking out. I think it's a PlayStation 1 game, if I recall correctly. So yeah. And then the final news story, which is not related to Nintendo Direct, is Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avengers IX is coming to Xbox One. Not so much. I'm not really saying this so much for the fact that this game is coming to Xbox, or rather, I'm not saying this so much as like oh cool, this game's coming to Xbox One kind of thing. Now you can play it on Xbox One. I think I'm curious to see if if Microsoft's really going to make a push for getting more people on Xbox One. I'm not sure if this was an Inti Creates decision or a Microsoft decision. If you listen to the Giant Bomb's E3 conversation with Phil Spencer, there was when they talked about Phantasy Star Online 2, he talked about him going to Japan and talking to the Phantasy Star Online team and basically being like, I want this on Xbox, basically, and trying to push for that to end up on Xbox. So I'm curious like how proactive Phil is being with Japanese developers. I think the biggest problem I have, like I don't really care about Sony first party. So like the biggest problem I have going between a PS4 and an Xbox One is just the Japanese developers. Like most Japanese developers are doing PS4, PC, and if they can, Nintendo Switch. So I'll be curious to see if this is the beginning. Like, I feel like I've seen a few other games coming to Xbox One as well from Japanese developers. So I'll be curious to see if there'll be like a slow transition to more games coming out on the platform. But yeah, I probably won't get an Xbox, whatever the next Xbox will be, immediately until they can prove that they're going to be, parity with like a PlayStation platform. I'm not really sure what my plans are for next generation yet in general. Like, I waited a while to get a PS4 and stuff, so I may wait a while again. I'm not sure. We'll see. Anyways, I just think it's cool it's coming there, and hopefully we'll see more games coming there because we need more competition, because Sony is being a good guy right now, and by good guy I mean they're in first place, so they can do whatever they want, and most people will settle with that. And I'm not sitting there saying you should get upset at Sony or anything like that. It's not like a huge, again, it's one of those things where it's like video games. Does it really matter? So, a little bit of a long podcast. Thanks for sticking around for it. Nintendo Direct's always filled with stuff. I thought it was a good direct. I wasn't super surprised by anything, but I thought it was a good direct overall. In terms of the website, what's up there? Kenshin Doji Zenki complete playthrough went up last week. So if you want to go check that out, that's the PCFX Brawler. One of the few PCFX games that is not heavily text-based, even though there's a lot of talking in the game. So if you're looking for something on the PCX to just check out and have a good time with for about 45 minutes, that's a fun game. If you don't plan on ever playing it, then you can just watch my full playthrough, I guess. So that's up on the site. I also did a test stream for my little craft table thing. Did some GameCube controller stream or cleaning, so that's up on the website as well. It's mainly just me sitting there chatting, and I have First Kiss Story music playing in the background, but it's very, very low, so it's difficult to hear. So I'll have to bump that up next time. Also trying to create a larger playlist that's not just First Kiss Story, just was what I happen to have for that test stream. In terms of when we're going to start doing that stuff and like if it's going to replace the Thursday stream or if it's going to be something different, I don't really know yet. I would like it to be something different, but the reality is that that's more time on stuff. So the more time I spend on stuff, the less time I have to do other things. And then during the stream last week, we finished up Tales of the Tempest. But if you're not interested in Tales of the Tempest, but still we're interested in some stream stuff, at the end of that stream, I played some Xbox Live indie games that I bought a while ago. A lot of them I hadn't ever turned on or actually looked at. I just bought them kind of blindly, looking at the label and being like, is there an anime lady on this cover? Yes, there is. I'm gonna buy this game. Some of those games are interesting. Some of them are actually fun games. Some of them are like you're like a old pervy man like trying to inch your way across the couch to like a host at a hostess club or something. It's weird. And then also next stream, what we'll probably do is I'm gonna play the original Valkyria Chronicles downloadable content. I never played through it before. I think I mentioned this last week, and I would like to revisit Valkyria Chronicles, but I would like to not play through all Valkyria Chronicles again. So I think revisiting the DLC might be a fun way to do that. Just kind of re-explore the mechanics of the game, and then also do something I haven't done with that game before. So it's interesting to buy DLC for a game I played nearly a decade ago. So yeah. Otherwise, that's it for this week. Thanks for coming. OneControlReport.com is the website. I hope you have a great week. Oh, streams are Thursday every day at 7 p.m. Not every day, every Thursday, sorry. Every Thursday at 7 o'clock. All right, p.m. PST. Yeah, I'm doing a good job. Thank you. Bye.